Good evening, everyone. My name is Arlene Marshall Hawkinsmith, and I'm the Administrative Officer of the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network. And on the behalf of our organization, our staff, board, and programs, I would like to thank you for joining us for this evening's first ever virtual Martin Luther King Summer Internship Recognition Reception and celebrating our 2020 class. It's always been a great honor for me personally to head up this amazing internship program, as I'm a former MLK intern myself, class of 2005. And it's my hope that tonight we'll be ushering in the next group of future legal aid attorneys. Typically, our intern placements are on site and accompanied by wonderful hands-on learning experiences and mentorship opportunities. But unfortunate for us and our interns, COVID-19 turned our worlds upside down, making it nearly impossible for our internship program to go on as planned. However, thanks to the creative thinking of our planned staff and our host programs, we were able to convert the internship program to a wonderfully successful remote experience. I'd like to give special thanks to all those involved in taking such great care to ensure that this year's program was a success. This year's interns represent a number of law schools, and I'd like to just review those. We have an intern from Penn State Law, Penn State Dickinson Law School, Widener Commonwealth Law School, Widener University Delaware Law School, Drexel University, Thomas R. Klein School of Law, University of Iowa College of Law, and Wake Forest University Law School. Even from home, our interns have been hard at work and have taken some time to share some of their experiences through writing in our 2020 Drum Major essay collection. And they plan to share some of their personal experiences later on in the program this evening. If you have not done so already, I would encourage you to visit our website to read our 2020 essay collection, as well as our 2020 Martin Luther King Summer Internship and Fellowship Program newsletter. As you can see from the program that we distributed, we have a lot that we want to cover this evening. So without further ado, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to President Judge Kim Berkeley Clark, President of the Plan Board, and a longtime supporter of the Martin Luther King program, who will share some welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Arlene. It is indeed my pleasure to be here this evening, and it is a privilege to serve as the current president of the board of the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network. Plan's dedication and commitment to providing legal services for Pennsylvania's most vulnerable citizens is key to achieving equal access to justice for all citizens. And as a judge who has seen the dangers firsthand of those who navigate the legal system without competent representation, this is something that is truly near and dear to my heart. I just want to give a special thanks to Arlene, who does such a wonderful job, even in the virtual world of COVID-19, along with the rest of the plan staff who assist her. So thank you, Arlene. I'm glad we can have this event this evening. So we are here this evening to honor and recognize the 2020 Martin Luther King Summer Interns. They are a dynamic group of energetic young women and men who this summer have chosen to use their education and talents to serve some of our Commonwealth's most vulnerable citizens. The summer internship provides law students with the opportunity to work in civil legal services programs and hopefully instills in them the desire to be servant leaders. For those of you who are not familiar with servant leadership, the phrase was coined by Robert K. Greenleaf in The Servant as Leader, an essay that he first published in 1970. And in that essay, he said, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve and to serve first. The conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from the one who is leader first, perhaps because of the need to assuage an unusual power or drive or to acquire material possessions. The leader first and the servant first are two extreme types. Between them, there are shadings and blends that are part of the infinite variety of human nature. The difference manifests itself in the care taken by the servant first to make sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served. And the best test and difficult to administer is, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, and more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit or at least not be further deprived? Martin Luther King Jr. was the epitome of a servant leader, and he dedicated his life to public service and to serve first. It was in this context that he became a leader. Dr. King clearly made sure that others' highest priority needs were served, and his leadership helped the least privileged in American society to grow, to become healthier, wiser, freer, and more autonomous. Many of those he served also became servant leaders. And I have to mention, on July 17th, we lost one of these great servant leaders, Congressman John Lewis. I contend that our MLK fellows have a lot in common with Dr. King. They have chosen this summer and hopefully in the future a path of service that will undoubtedly carry them to a path of leadership. They have chosen a path of leadership that will not make them rich in money, but will make them rich in many other ways. Dr. King said, we are prone to judge success by the index of our salaries or the size of our automobiles, rather than the quality of our service and relationship to mankind. And hopefully you will choose the latter. After reading your essays, I am confident that each of you, like Dr. King, is a drum major for justice. You are drum majors for righteousness. A career of public service, of serving the least privileged in society, will not pay you the salaries that a life in the private sector undoubtedly will, but you will have something more valuable, a committed life of public service, and for this we thank you. So on behalf of the Plan Board, I extend heartfelt thanks and congratulations to our drum majors for justice, and good luck to each of you. It is now my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, the Honorable Reyes Morris. After more than 25 years of distinguished service as an attorney and civic servant in his community, Judge Morris was elected to serve as a judge on the Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas in 2018. He began working for the Dauphin County Public Defender's Office in 1991 and served as chief deputy in that office from 1996 to 1999. In 1999, Judge Morris joined the law firm of Goldberg Katzman and was elevated to partner in 2002. And throughout his legal career, Judge Morris represented individuals and corporations in criminal matters and municipalities as solicitor and general counsel, often litigating complex and politically sensitive matters on behalf of those clients in county, state, and federal courts. Judge Morris has provided numerous continuing legal education seminars for the Pennsylvania Bar Institute and the Pennsylvania Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, having previously served as that organization as president, vice president, and treasurer. He was an adjunct professor at Harrisburg Area Community College, teaching criminal law and criminal evidence for more than 10 years. Judge Morris received a gubernatorial appointment to serve on the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing and served on the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Task Force on the Code of Judicial Conduct. Judge Morris serves on the House of Delegates for the Pennsylvania Bar Association and is the former chair of the Equal Professional Opportunity Committee for the Dauphin County Bar Association and the Capital Area Managing Partners Diversity Initiative. Named by Philadelphia Magazine, as a Pennsylvania super lawyer from 2008 to 2017, he rated as the highest level of professional excellence. He is a graduate of Temple University with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and received his Juris Doctorate from the University of Maryland. He also completed an intensive program at the National Criminal Defense College at Mercer Law School in Macon, Georgia. Judge Morris is also very involved in the community, having served on the board of the Harrisburg Regional Police Athletic League. He volunteered his time for nonprofits as a youth sports coach and a Cub Scout leader. In 2016, he received the Mayor's Award for Distinguished Public Service. A New Jersey native, Judge Morris moved to the Harrisburg area in 1991 with his wife. He is the father of 2 sons and enjoys spending time with his family and sporting events in his spare time. So Please welcome Judge Morris.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank President Judge Clark for that kind introduction. I would also like to thank Plan for the great work they continue to do. In particular, I would like to thank Executive Director Patrick Cicero and Administrative Officer Arlene Marshall Hawkinsmith for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to address this esteemed class of MLK interns. I'm humbled by the opportunity to share a few words as you close this summer of extraordinary opportunity and equally extraordinary challenge. You are all part of what I can only describe as history. This has been one of the most challenging times that the world has ever experienced. I certainly have experienced nothing like this in my lifetime. As you exhale from the vicissitudes of this summer, I understand there are more challenging times ahead as your law schools navigate how they will deliver legal education in the coming months as we continue to suffer under this pandemic. So I want to encourage you tonight and celebrate you and your accomplishments this summer. We've heard a lot of talk about essential workers during this battle with COVID-19. We've dubbed certain professions as essential, and rightfully so, because without them, things in this country would have ground to a screeching halt. We would have suffered greatly without our doctors, our nurses, our police, our firefighters, those folks that deliver our packages, deliver our food, our grocery store clerks, and my judicial staff. They wanted me to say that. And so many other uncelebrated and often unrecognized folks that make things go so that others can feel comfortable and safe and protected. Well, I'm going to add another group to that category this evening, and that is you and the organizations you worked for this summer. As you know, when the country shut down, the courts kept going. Like every other essential worker, legal services had to continue. We continued to hold delinquency and dependency hearings for juveniles, protection from abuse hearings, and emergency hearings for guardianships, and other matters that could just not be continued. And we all know in times of crisis for our nation, the folks that get hurt the most are the poor and the marginalized. The most in need of services, those are the people that need your help and that you provided help for this summer. So I want to honor you and your efforts this summer. I honor Kendra for the essential work she did with the Pennsylvania Health Law Project, where she worked with clients from all walks of life that were struggling in navigating the healthcare system, defending medically fragile children and their Medicare insurance companies trying to reduce their in-home services, and fragile seniors and people with disabilities who were in danger of losing the necessary home care services they needed. I applaud her for being able to share her story as a sister of someone with autism to relate to a client who may have just needed to hear that their loved one mattered. I honor Shirai for her essential work with the Community Legal Services in the Family Advocacy Unit, where she was able to see up close and personal how race and poverty have criminalized the child welfare system, where she was emboldened to see her role as a child welfare advocate, and where she was able to increase her knowledge on the intersectionality of the child welfare system and the criminal justice system. I was impressed by her self-reflection as she began to realize, as a Black Caribbean American woman, how rare she was in the profession and how vitally important her role could be in transforming the lives of disadvantaged children and families through law and policy. I honor Zane for his essential work with Neighborhood Legal Services, where he learned that people in need were always looking for more than just advice, that they were often seeking reassurance in a sense that things were going to be okay. As he advised clients and developed a sense that they needed more than just lip service, but a genuine commitment to the problems and situations they faced. He developed a willingness to listen and to hear someone's story in order to create a lasting impact on their lives. I honor Bingran for her essential work with the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, where she helped develop a case chart regarding transgender qualifications for disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which helped her develop a clearer understanding of gender dysphoria and society's acceptance of the same. She conducted research on transgender issues under the ADA and the Eighth Amendment. She was able to assist in cases involving transgender inmates who were denied appropriate medical care, an inmate denied accommodations for pain, a pregnant inmate who was put in medical isolation, and her labor induced. I honor Jessica for her essential work with Regional Housing Legal Services, where she embraced the mission of establishing sustainable, affordable housing developments in urban areas, where she learned about low-income housing's tax credits and how they can be applied to housing development projects. She also learned about mass evictions when landlords decide to take a rental property off the market. She developed a sense of the importance of affordable housing, especially in light of the pandemic and the unemployment it caused. I honor Juliana for her essential work with Philadelphia Legal Assistance in their housing unit, where she focused on preventing low-income homeowners from losing their homes, assisted in obtaining documents from the Register of Wills on how to determine if writs of execution had been issued against clients and whether there were sheriff sales scheduled, and used various tools for calculating value of property. In light of the pandemic, she developed knowledge about the ever-changing mortgage relief and forbearance programs rolled out by the government. I honor Ashley for her essential work at Justice Works, where the work focused on providing legal aid to low-wage immigrant workers, providing legal representation and community education to immigrants and migrant workers about their legal rights. She was impacted by a case that involved assisting a client with her personal statement to obtain a U visa. The worker she described was subjected to sexual harassment at the hands of her coworkers and supervisor. This female immigrant worker found the courage to report her harassment despite the fear of termination. And as Ashley described, because of her bravery, she was given the opportunity to stay in the United States with her 3 children. I honor Jason for his essential work with Mid-Penn Legal Services. As Jason comes to the end of his law school career, his commitment to working with underserved populations that Mid-Penn serves is commendable. His work with victims of abuse, seeking orders of protection from the court, saves lives. Through this process, he's developed patience, helpfulness, and understanding of the importance of being forthright with his clients, the defendants, opposing counsel, judges, the court staff, all of which will serve him well as he pursues his career in the future. His stated commitment to public service over the lure of big law and the money that can offer is inspiring. I honor Gabrielle for her essential work with Community Justice Project, where she engaged in virtual trainings and began to learn the inner workings of Pennsylvania poverty law. Though the picture was not always clear on how remedies could be fashioned for disadvantaged clients, Gabrielle was able to see that David, in fact, could at times triumph over Goliath. She was able to see this play out in a virtual eviction tracking project when violations of county's moratoriums on evictions were found. Though the evictions had already occurred, the Community Justice Project went to work in contacting judges and magistrates, and many of those cases were withdrawn, settled, discontinued, or marked as administratively closed, removing them from the public docket and avoiding the negative effects on tenants' future housing applications. Finally, I honor Imam for her essential work with Pennsylvania Utility Law Project, as she focused her work on policy, particularly as it surrounds Pennsylvania's low-income home energy assistance program, and seeing how to be creative and think of solutions that would benefit the energy and utility needs of individuals living in poverty. Iman recognized the importance in being a voice for the voiceless, as she described her desire to be a mouthpiece to achieve the wants and needs of her client. She also was able to see the organization that she worked for release a statement in response to plans call to action to condemn persistent racism and violence perpetuated by the justice system following the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. You are all truly worthy of being honored and praised this evening. It is no small task becoming drum majors for justice, especially after the model of Dr. Martin Luther King. He left a one-of-a-kind footprint and example. However, I spent this time to honor your achievements because, though they may be less significant in light of the great challenges our legal system faces as we deal with the twin tragedies of the pandemic and the systematic racism that George Floyd's death brought to light, it is young, bright future lawyers like you who have expressed commitment to the poor, the underserved, and the marginalized, who suffer the most under the weight of an unequal system that can help us reach that lofty goal of true social justice. So I'm so proud of this program and your commitment to seek equal justice under the law. So I will leave you with this. W. Clement Stone, a 19th century American businessman and philanthropist, is quoted as saying, "Big doors swing on little hinges." Thank you for allowing yourself to be the hinges on the very big and heavy door that leads to equal justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Morris, for those wonderful remarks. We're really appreciative of you spending the time with us this evening and participating in this wonderful celebration of our interns. At this point in time in our ceremony, I'd like to recognize each of our interns individually. Typically at this time, if we were in person, each of our interns would be recognized for their work and they would be presented with a certificate as well as a memento as a keepsake of their summer experience. So our students will receive those items in the mail. I'd like to use this time to introduce each intern and provide them with a few moments to share an excerpt of their essay. So we'll go in alphabetical order this evening. And the first person I'd like to start with is Kendra Barr. Kendra is a law student at Wake Forest University Law School, and her host program this summer was Pennsylvania Health Law Project. Kendra?
Good evening. As said, my name is Kendra Barr, and this summer I got a chance to work with the Pennsylvania Health Law Project. And I got a chance to work with clients, as said, from all walks of life who were struggling to navigate the healthcare system. They came to PHLP with a variety of issues, ranging from eligibility for Medicaid to more complex issues, including coverage of specific services. And I got the chance to represent these clients in grievances and fair hearings, and that included medically fragile children to senior citizens that otherwise might lose access to the medically necessary services they not only deserved, but that they needed to be able to survive in their communities. In a time where companies were trying to save a dollar, it was powerful to be able to put a face and put a voice to these clients and to be able to help someone to use their voice to be able to advocate for either themselves or for their loved ones. The experiences that impacted me the most, though, were the conversations that I got to have with clients that didn't necessarily have to do with their health issues at hand. And at least that's what I thought. But the deeper I got into the conversations with them, I realized that a lot of health disparities are rooted in systemic racial inequalities, and a lot of problems loop back together, either directly or indirectly. And one client that I talked to was raising 2 young Black special needs sons with violent tendencies. And as said, I'm a sibling of a child with autism, and we got the opportunity to talk about the not so pretty side of disabilities. We talked about how even within the disabled community, children of color, specifically young Black boys, are ostracized and left out of a lot of services that are needed because there aren't the supports to handle them. And this only harms those children and their families. In the United States, we have an issue with access to non-police resources and for individuals in crisis and for those individuals who do need welfare checks. And we got the chance to share stories and experiences, and listening to her stories, I found myself resonating with my own family's experiences and the fears that we share as a family of color, and that in a situation in which the police are needed, that it will be escalated and the help that was requested is not received. I also got the opportunity to attend a panel on the intersection between disabilities and Black womanhood. And the topic of discussion was how racism is a public health issue in more ways than one. The main way being that the stress associated with racism takes a toll on the mental and physical health of people of color. And listening to all of the clients that I got the opportunity to interact with deepened my commitment to want to be a drum major for change, a drum major for justice, to leave an impact on this world in any way that I can. And most importantly, it deepened my insight into the complex intersection between racial justice, sexism, and access to health care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendra, for those remarks. Now I'd like to move on to Shirai Bryan. And Shirai is a law student at Penn State Law. Shirai?
Hi, I'm Shirai, and my experience at Community Legal Services in the Family Advocacy Unit was transformative. In the Family Advocacy Unit, I have seen an interdisciplinary and collaborative team model made of attorneys, social workers, and peer advocates who work together with the goal of reunifying families broken by the child welfare system. Through working in the Family Advocacy Unit, I have learned that family defense law is not glamorous. It requires daily fighting a difficult war that demands passionate and creative people willing to problem solve and find solutions to many unpredictable, unfair, and biased decisions. Every day, the Family Advocacy Unit team fights tirelessly with the expectation of winning one case after the other, unhindered by their losses. I have grown as I have been challenged by the Family Advocacy Unit attorneys to analyze case law with ingenuity, to develop strong defenses in support of reunification of children to their families. I have grown in compassion through answering questions and listening to the stories of diverse, resilient clients that share one commonality, an intense desire to do whatever is necessary to regain custody of their children. I have grown as I attended 3 days a week Family Advocacy Unit community meetings that opened me to a world of passionate and informed brainstorming sessions with discussions that range from developing new approaches on integrating racial justice in client advocacy to abolishing and then reconstructing the child welfare system. Since working in the Family Advocacy Unit, I have been consciously aware of the privilege and opportunity bestowed upon me as a Black Caribbean woman pursuing a law degree. In 2019, a recent report from the National Association for Law Placement confirmed that only 1.73% of attorneys are Black women. I am a rarity and I carry the instinct for greatness and significance, not for self-grandeur, but for bringing transformative justice to disadvantaged children and families through law and policy. Working closely with my supervisors has shown me that as an attorney pursuing this instinct for greatness on behalf of others requires a tenacious spirit. There will be times that despite my best efforts to defend a client, I will lose. However, my supervisors have shown me that failure is never defeat. One of my supervisors said to me, even though I lost this case will help us learn how to win for the next family. Failure is never final. I am grateful to be a part of the legacy of the planned Martin Luther King Jr. Summer Internship Program. It gives me a great pride to be a part of a cohort that is pursuing public interest to serve disenfranchised communities. I'm grateful for Arlene Marshall Hawkins-Smith's effort to provide my cohort with resourceful preliminary trainings before internship started. This was a great benefit. Despite doing this program in the midst of the coronavirus, this experience has been life-changing. Beyond passion, I now have a clear vision of how I will be a change agent that makes a tangible impact in public interest law to provide children and families access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirai. And I neglected to mention that Shirai interned at Community Legal Services in Philadelphia. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Zane Gates. Zane is a law student at Widener Commonwealth Law School, and he interned at Neighborhood Legal Services in Pittsburgh. Zane?
In closing his sermon, Martin Luther King urged his congregation not to focus on his achievement, but his service to others. Just as law in practice works differently than law in theory, a person's achievements on paper is less reflective of their impact on a person's life than the actual connection that was made during the process. Thus, regardless of my performance at NLS, Neighborhood Legal Services, compared to the other interns, I know I made a positive change in my clients' lives. Focusing my drum major instinct to give validation to me for helping others not only gave me peace, but it also helped my clients cope with their situations. Because at the end of the day, no matter the situation, we all want to be praised and desired. And sometimes the best thing you can do for a person is to give them that praise. That may be enough to help them through the hard times that they found them in. That is by far, the most important lesson I learned during my time at NLS. And I hope to be able to continue to touch people's lives through the medium of law. As Dr. King put it, say that I was a drum major for peace. Say that I was a drum major for righteousness, and all the other shallow things will not matter. And I'd also like to take this time to thank Miss Arlene for giving me this opportunity to actually make this impact on people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. Next up, I'm going to introduce you to Bingran Lee. And Bingran is a law student at Penn State Dickinson Law, and she interned at the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project in Pittsburgh.
Good evening. I am Bingran Lee. I use my drum major instinct to serve clients of Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, whose civil rights were violated. During my internship, I conducted legal research on transgender issues under the American with Disability Act, an Eighth Amendment issue as it relates to transgender medical care, and compensatory damage issues of ADA claims. I drafted a memo on a transgender issue under the ADA, reviewed discovery documents, and drafted a discovery insufficiency letter. By doing these assignments, I helped a transgender inmate who was denied appropriate medical care and accommodations, an inmate who was denied accommodations for his pain and inability to walk, and a female inmate who was put in a medical isolation cell for 1 month while she was pregnant. Her labor was induced before her due date because of prison administrative reasons. Throughout her labor and postpartum hospital stay, she was shackled. I believe that I tried in my life to visit those who were in prison, like Dr. King required of himself. I'm using my drum major instinct to learn how to better serve society. Aside from learning specific legal skills, I also learned a lot from attending conferences, webinars, and networking events during my internship. I learned about different kinds of legal work by attending pre-trial conferences, mediations, intake meetings, client calls, etc. I met other interns and attorneys from other planned programs via online networking events. Dr. King believed service to society leads to real greatness. In my opinion, learning leads to better service. The drum major instinct is a desire to be recognized, be important, and to be the first. Using the drum major instinct to be a servant to society is a path to greatness. I appreciate how MLK program and PUP lead me to this path. I will use my legal knowledge, my passion, my heart full of grace, and my soul great generated by love to keep serving society. Thank you.
Thank you, Bingran. Next up is Jessica Maharaj, and she is a law student at the University of Iowa College of Law, and she interned at Regional Housing Legal Services, and I'll be reading an excerpt from her drum major essay. Due to travel restrictions and business closures brought on by COVID-19, my internship was converted to remote work, No longer would I have an opportunity to get reacquainted with the city that I loved, nor have a physical presence at my host program. Remote work brought its own set of challenges, from lack of in-person interaction with regional housing, legal services, attorneys, to limitations on the type of work assigned to me. At first, I was discouraged and jaded. I believed that any work that I'd be doing from my living room all the way in Iowa City, Iowa, would not make much of a difference or have a meaningful impact on regional housing, legal services, important work. Keep feeling the need for being important. Keep feeling the need for being first, but I want you to be first in love. I want you to be first in moral excellence. I want you to be first in generosity. This is what I want you to do. This is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr.'s Drum Major Instinct. She goes on to say that this quote inspired me to continue to persevere despite all of the obstacles. In Dr. King's Drum Major Instinct sermon, he explained the drum major instinct. This instinct is the constant feeling and effort to do better and be better, sometimes to the point of destruction. However, oftentimes it can help one to create a big, impactful change. We, even as legal interns, have the ability to harness our drum major instinct and create impactful change. I need to keep feeling the need to be first. It was important to me to make the most out of this wonderful opportunity and learn as much as I could. If I didn't put myself first, I would have lost sight of this goal and become consumed by all of the obstacles. I need to be first in generosity. I have skills that can help further the important work that Regional Housing Legal Services is doing. I could help Regional Housing Legal Services help others if I continue to be generous and not allow the idea of remote internship diminish the quality of my work nor the strength of my dedication. Thank you for those words, Jessica. Next, I'm going to introduce you to Juliana Maharaj. And Juliana is a student at Drexel University, Thomas Arthur School of Law, and her host program was Philadelphia Legal Assistance. Juliana?
Thank you, Ms. Arlene. I would like to start my speech thanking you, Mr. Patrick, Ms. Olive, Ms. Santos, and my supervisor, Mr. Traus, for having this chance, for having this opportunity to participate in Martin Luther King Internship Program. It feels great to be part of this program. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I would like to continue with saying that make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a greater person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. This was part of the speech of Dr. King during the March for Integrated Schools on April 18, 1959. The quote contains one of the many lessons Dr. King gave to us, lessons which are much needed now that the whole country is suffering the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now that over 135,000 people have lost their lives in the United States alone. Millions have lost their jobs and are at risk of losing the homes they own or being evicted from the homes they rent. Now, more than ever, society is in need of legal organizations and lawyers who can provide quality, free legal assistance. I consider myself lucky in the middle of this unprecedented time to have the opportunity to work this summer at Philadelphia Legal Assistance Consumer and Housing Unit. It was no doubt difficult for PLA to switch from seeing clients in person in their centralized office to remote representation, where everyone was working from home. PLA was able, under difficult circumstances, to continue to provide legal assistance to its clients in need and to integrate us, legal interns, into the different substantive units, which all worked remotely but efficiently and cohesively. This was an unforgettable experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Ashley Reyes. And Ashley is a law student at Widener University, Delaware Law School, and she interned at Justice at Work. Ashley?
Thank you, Arlene. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant." Working at Justice at Work gave me the opportunity to work with clients, work alongside wonderful attorneys who serve their clients zealously, write legal memos, and get constructive feedback on everything I've done. Justice at Work is full of amazing attorneys who even serve clients that aren't their own. A perfect example is a deposition I read while working on a case where one of the staff attorneys zealously defended a witness of their client that was being grilled about his immigration status by opposing counsel. Even after opposing counsel made it clear to Justice at Work's staff attorney that she had no reason to defend the witness since she was not his attorney, she felt the need to serve and ensure that his rights were still protected. Her selfless act to defend the witness encouraged him to stand up against the unreasonable questions being asked at the deposition. The attorneys here inspire me to work as fiercely as they do, so I too can better serve the community when it's my turn to handle cases. As Judge Morris mentioned earlier, what has impacted me the most while at Justice at Work was working on a client's personal statement for her U visa. She worked at a mushroom farm and endured years of sexual harassment and abuse by 2 coworkers and a supervisor. As she described her sexual abuse, I saw how even years later, she was still disturbed by what she had to face in silence. At the height of the assault, she described how alone and vulnerable she felt. She described how she couldn't report what she experienced to anyone because she would have been disciplined or even fired by the very supervisor that was sexually abusing her. But even through the fear, she found the strength and reported what she endured to an investigator. Now, through her bravery, she is qualified to get immigration relief and has the opportunity to remain in the United States with her 3 children. I was inspired by her fortitude and strength to continue pushing towards justice. I saw firsthand the importance of the work nonprofits, just like Justice at Work, provides to clients who may not have another opportunity to be vindicated. A lot of what I have gained during this internship has solidified my desire to work at a nonprofit and commit to serving the underserved once I graduate. I will carry the lessons I have learned through this internship so I, like Dr. King, can leave a committed life towards peace and righteousness behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Next up is Jason Sullivan Halper, and Jason is a student at Penn State Law, and he interned at Mid-Penn Legal Services. Jason?
Hello. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sermon, The Drum Major Instinct, continues to inspire me through my 2nd summer as a participant in the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network's Martin Luther King Internship Program. In the wake of George Floyd's death, it is a harrowing reminder of how the issues of racism, classism, and poverty discussed therein still pervade American society at all levels. Dr. King's words are, sadly, as relevant today as they were in his lifetime. The Drum Major Instinct asks us to consider how this instinct, the desire to feel superior to others, lies at the core of such issues. A never-ending pursuit for status, accolades, and wealth encourages us to minimize others' accomplishments, or far worse. It also leaves us feeling unfulfilled. By focusing on building lasting relationships instead, we can find meaning and purpose through service to others and redefine the concept of American greatness in doing so. Dr. King reminds all of us that individually, we must make incremental progress towards creating a more equitable society through our small acts of service. By understanding and uplifting one another, we can begin to eliminate artificial barriers based on ethnicity, gender, upbringing, and income in our communities, so we may be judged only by the content of our character. I am incredibly thankful that Mid-Penn Legal Services allowed me to return to their Clearfield County office as a certified legal intern with the MLK program to once again contribute to Dr. King's vision in my own small way. As a rising 3L inundated with information about postgraduate salaries and repaying student loans and studying for the bar exam, it's really easy to lose sight of why many of us studied law in the first place, to help others navigate the legal system, reduce the inequalities engendered by it, and achieve justice for our clients, whatever that may mean. Serving as a certified legal intern at Mid-Penn Legal Services has been an opportunity for me to pursue this fulfilling work and gain invaluable skills that I will need to practice in a public interest role following graduation. I am tremendously grateful to the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network and to Arlene specifically for making this opportunity possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Next up, we have Gabrielle Talk, who is also a student at Penn State Law, and Gabrielle interned at the Community Justice Project. Gabrielle?
Hi. 2020 has been an extraordinarily strange year for most of us. Our nation is situated in one of its most perilous moments. We're facing multiple social, economic, political, and health crises across the board. Across many fronts, our national status quo has been shattered, and we're left asking what comes next. In the midst of change and uncertainty, I personally was enrolled in my second semester of my 1L year at Penn State Law. In December 2019, I secured my internship placement with Plan's Community Justice Project, CJP, before the devastating effects of COVID had made themselves apparent. Businesses across the country had ground to a halt, and many of my colleagues and friends lost their jobs or their internships or had opportunities canceled. Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network never stopped, though. I think it's important to pause here and also highlight other essential service providers and frontline healthcare workers who persisted as well through impossible circumstances. Plan and its member legal aid providers in particular, however, worked tirelessly as boots on the ground to secure civil rights and privileges for our communities early on through the COVID pandemic and surrounding crises. Virtual trainings were arranged with speakers from across the state via Zoom to teach our intern cohort the inner workings of Pennsylvania poverty law. CJP arranged for weekly Zoom meetings and partnered with Carnegie Mellon's Create Lab to build a virtual eviction tracking database. More impressive than the adaptability and efficient tech solutions displayed by both Plan and CJP, however, is the characteristic mindset that every Plan attorney and staffer has demonstrated. In my first weeks with CJP, I personally struggled with what Dr. Martin Luther King has termed a superficial, dangerous optimism. I would dive into projects with zeal until I realized the issue was far from clear-cut and the potential remedies may not be as advantageous for our clients as I would like. Admittedly, it was hard not to lose steam on projects that were slow to develop or where the effects of my work weren't readily apparent. Oftentimes, projects felt Sisyphean, particularly in 2020 with a conservative-leaning administration and some political forces that are hostile to social support programs. Yet, like David against the Goliath, CJP and Plan's mindset is never defeatist or cynical. They constantly spin moments into opportunities to help the members of our community that need it the most. The lesson of CJP and similar legal aid providers is that every step towards empathetic social change is a step worth taking, even if the effect can't be readily felt in the moment. When our efforts are met with resistance, it would be far easier to accept symbolic victories or lay down and accept such is life. But real change comes from all of us coming together with creative persistency and understanding that our personal efforts are one ripple in a wave of social change and advocacy. I'm honored to work and train with dedicated legal aid providers and attorneys that understand the importance of this humble work. Before I end, I want to personally thank Attorney Arlene Marshall Hawkinsmith for stewarding this program through unprecedented times, along with Attorney Daniel Vitek and Attorney Kevin Kiesenberry for their mentorship at my particular program. Finally, I defer to Dr. King's words in saying, the plan of freedom has only grown just a bud and not yet a flower. Real change will take time quietly caring and tending to before any real result can be appreciated. But like a flower, the bloom will be worth the wait. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Iman Woodyard. And she is a student at Penn State Dickinson Law, and she interned at Pennsylvania Utility Law Project. Iman?
Thank you. COVID-19 and its effects places this drum major instinct in a perspective that might not have been as evident if our lives continued as it previously did. As for most, if not all of us, our routines came to a halt or were dramatically altered, and we were forced to give attention to more substantive matters to evaluate if certain processes and systems are beneficial for all members of society. But just as Dr. King did not only discuss the negative results of the drum major instinct, neither will I. Because along with the tragic events that have occurred in our world this summer, a movement has strongly emerged with a loud voice to demand swift and sweeping change when it comes to the unfair treatment of minority, poor, and vulnerable populations, particularly concerning racial justice and the historic mistreatment of the Black community. I'm glad to be involved in public interest work during this time of awakening and to participate in thorough discussion on how to combat oppressive forces in society. Early on in my internship, PULP, along with Regional Housing Legal Services, released a joint statement in response to PLAN's call to action to condemn the persistent racism within and violence perpetrated by our justice system, specifically following the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor by police and the murder of Ahmaud Arbery by private citizens. As an intern, it was a beneficial experience to add my own contributions to the statement and examine the construction process. As a Black woman who is heartbroken at the repeated injustice against my community, I was both greatly impacted and impressed on how quickly, but with meticulous intent, everyone worked with each other to craft a powerful statement. And to even explicitly state that the current systems of belief surrounding access to housing and utilities have racist foundations. I will forever appreciate PULP's transparency and awareness in knowing that their mission to achieve economic justice cannot and will not be accomplished without them being a source of active anti-racism. Being a Martin Luther King Jr. intern during a global health crisis and great social unrest was not anything that I could have predicted, but it is still a great honor to serve. The woes of society when it comes to equality has been greatly exposed now more than ever, and it is evident that we need to emulate Dr. King's desire to be known as a drum major for justice, peace, and righteousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. So at this point in our ceremony, I like to have an opportunity to share the platform with a student representative to speak on behalf of the internship class. The person that's actually going to be speaking today is who you just heard from right now, Iman Woodyard. I believe that she certainly exemplifies the purpose behind Dr. King's drum major instinct sermon, and is willing to speak on behalf of her class to share some of their experiences and also talk about future legal career paths. So Iman, if you'd like to take it from here.
Hello, thank you, and hello again. So 10 law students from various backgrounds, areas, and schools make up this class of interns in a program that advertised obtaining valuable experience in legal services in the effort to train the next generation of public interest attorneys over a 10-week program. Well, none of us were expecting to be serving in our roles during both the global health crisis and a major social movement when applying. But I know for a fact we all witnessed ourselves grow both personally and professionally as participants navigating these unique circumstances, gaining knowledge and skills far beyond what could be learned from a textbook. This experience is beneficial as we prepare for the rest of our schooling, graduate, and enter our future careers, as we recognize that many of our peers were not as fortunate to have a valuable component to their summer this year. Due to COVID-19 and the necessary health precautions that were put in place, we found that the majority, if not all of our assignments and work became remote. We thank Arlene, Plan, our host organizations, and everyone else who had their hand in keeping this program alive, allowing us to be involved in as great of a capacity as we could, and any other supportive means that assisted our internship through this unprecedented time. Our appreciation extends any amount of words or actions that we can say or do, but I know that every single one of us will hold this experience close to our heart. And even though we are not able to meet and network in person right now, I believe this summer proves an important point. Positive impact can have origin through any means, at any place, by any one person. This program is evidence to show anyone who has any doubts that roadblocks placed on your path is definitely not the end to our journey, but simply the beginning of constructing new creative solutions to the issues that we are facing. This summer, everyone involved with this program showed exactly how special things can be when the top priority of our mission is striving for upholding clients' rights, as it was a force beyond pushing through difficult moments that were thrown our way. And so us finding success within the limitation also proves that we do not have any excuses either. We must do better as a society to fight for the justice-filled world that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached about and envisioned for us. And we must do better to advocate for change in our legal, economic, social systems that failed individuals like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I unfortunately can take up so much time listing too many names and stories, both that have and have not been given media attention. Clients deserve advocates who practice what they preach in the courtroom or on administrative levels. And especially in legal aid, we are seeing individuals at probably one of their worst moments of their lives, while they simultaneously dealing with other pressing and life-altering issues that we may not be directly assisting them with. It is no secret that those who exist in poverty live under oppressive systems, and that damage is aggravated depending on what intersectional forces come down upon them. Our host programs deal with a variety of issues, like you've heard, from healthcare to immigration, family law to housing and utilities. And the common thread among all of these is the disproportionate negative effect on those who are low income, especially communities of color, and highlighted the added number of hurdles that are placed in our attempt to access justice. This reflects the social commentary of our current time, as a movement erupted this summer to voice concerns and demand change in a system that was not originally built to protect these vulnerable communities. I am hopeful that we as an intern class are part of a shift that allows for our future to look better than our present, bringing awareness and chipping away at the racist fundamentals that were built our societal foundation, one client, one case, one genuine effort at a time. And this can only be accomplished as a collective. It cannot be just those who are suffering and oppressed that are speaking out. Those who hold privilege, such as advanced degrees, high positions, financial security, an expansive network, which describes many of us in the legal profession, need to put in work toward the cause as well. And with a field like legal services, I'm assuming that I'm preaching to the choir right now, as this type of work inherently attracts those who have passionate motivation to help those who are vulnerable. But I suggest that this commitment extends beyond the workplace. It is not enough to clock in and out of this fight when there are many people, our clients included, who do not have that luxury. I believe that one of the initial steps that we must all do is take a look within our own heart and also examine how we maneuver within our personal lives. Are we only surrounding ourselves with and communicating to people who look the same way we do, have the same level of education or economic status, share the same thought processes as we do? How do we treat people who may think and look different than us and deviate from what we believe to be normal, whatever definition you have for that? The lack of knowledge of an other and unwillingness to connect because of differences blocks the vision of getting a full picture and appreciating the wholeness of an individual. And so when a client comes to you in hopes of gaining your assistance, they are ultimately telling your story, their story. A story is something that one holds dear to them, as it consists of their struggles, worries, hopes, and desires. And most likely with our legal aid clients, they were told or given the impression at some point in their life that their story does not matter and that they have little to no value to who they are. Everyone deserves to tell their side of the story, regardless of race, ethnic background, sex, gender, economic status, or nationality. And it is our job as those who work in the legal profession to listen, try our best to understand, and use the law to give a platform to this voice that continuously has been taken out of history. A sense of empowerment to those who generally do not receive it because their livelihood depends on it. And so this intern class created a great story here. Among several different plot points that may have tried to throw us off track, we still continued on with the narrative to solidify our passion for this type of work. I am proud to be part of a radical conversation with these 9 other dedicated individuals during this time, and I cannot wait to see what all of us write in our next chapters. Thank you.
Great job, Iman. Thank you for sharing those remarks. Such a strong voice on the behalf of your class. At this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to our esteemed Executive Director, Patrick Cicero, to share some remarks. Patrick?
Thanks, Arlene. Wow is all that I have to say. I am significantly impressed with all of you, the words, your actions, and your remarks. So thank you. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. Judge Morris, thank you for being here, for carving out time and space to honor the accomplishments of the young men and women who make up the 2020 MLK class. We're deeply grateful for both your work, your guidance, and your wisdom that you shared with us tonight. President Judge Clark, thank you. It's an honor and privilege to have you as my board president and stewarding plan. You're an amazing leader, and I'm grateful that you're at the helm. This really is one of my favorite nights of the year because we get to celebrate the successes and the achievements of 10 tremendous interns. I know many of you watching tonight, and there's a whole host of people watching via YouTube Live, know how special the individuals who are here tonight are. It's because you're their family, their friends, their loved ones. You've worked with them this summer. You've mentored them this summer. And I just want to thank you for the time that you spent bringing these students to where they are tonight. None of us comes to this place alone. We all stand on the shoulders of people who came before us, whether that's mothers or fathers, aunts or uncles, family member, friends, mentors. So thank you to those of you who are watching, who are the proud parents and grandparents and uncles and aunties, whether by blood or not, for your stewarding of these folks. We deeply appreciate that, and we know that you're deeply proud of them, and we are too. The students who worked with us this summer are amazing, both in terms of their flexibility and their commitment. The adjustment from an in-person internship, which was expected, anticipated, and hoped for, to an internship that was remote is not easy, at least psychologically and often practically. But the students rolled with it, they served clients, they made relationships, and they thrived. If you have a chance, I really encourage you to read the essays, most of which you got a preview of tonight. Each student wrote of their hope, the promise of the future, their frustration at injustice, and their ideas about how to change the world. And it is deeply inspiring. I encourage you to read them. If the 10 students who participated in this year's internship are representative of the next generation of legal aid attorneys, then we are in good hands. And so I'm thankful for that. We all know, as you heard through many of the words tonight, that the world is not as it ought to be. Luckily, this is where each of you comes in. COVID-19 has taught us how little we can control. For some of us, that's a new idea. For some of us, it's not. For our clients, it surely isn't. They know that there's very little that they can control when they walk in the doors of each of our legal aid offices. But they're greeted with hope, they're greeted with dignity, they're greeted with respect, and they're greeted with promise. For our clients, I thank you for serving them this summer in your capacities as interns, whether that's in writing projects that advanced a policy initiative, whether that's as a certified legal intern, or whether that's doing research that help advance a case, large or small. You've made a difference, and that makes a difference in the lives of clients. Thank you. COVID-19 has laid bare all the ways that systemic oppression of poverty, race, and gender are entwined. What does it take to overcome systemic oppression? It takes a lot of things, and I don't pretend to list them all. But at its core, it takes a deep awareness of the problem, some of which you've heard here tonight. It also takes clear-eyed resolve and dedication to work hand in hand with those who have been marginalized, not just with those who are in power, but with those who have been marginalized. It takes a long-term commitment to build on the successes of those who have come before you. None of us can do this work alone. We all have people who come before us, and we'll all have people who come after us. Our job is to do the work that we've been given with the time that we have. We always work to build on the successes of those who came before us and lay foundations for those who are next. You interns this summer are part of the longer journey towards striving for justice. You have planted seeds that someone else is going to water. You have watered seeds that someone else has planted. And if you're lucky, and if we're lucky, when you're done with your school, you'll come back and help us harvest the results. What are those results? Justice. Justice for the poor. Justice for marginalized people. Justice for oppressed populations. Justice to ensure that the world is a better place based on your work. One that seeks to change systems of oppression into systems of opportunity for all. This is no easy task, but it is worth doing, and I thank you for your time doing it this summer. Of course, our interns this summer were supported by our 10 of our programs through mentoring, guidance, and support. I'm deeply grateful that not only did the interns say yes when we said, do you want to do your internship remotely? But our programs did too. So thank you to the supervising attorneys and executive directors of the programs that hosted our interns this summer. This could not have happened without you. I'm grateful for the support that you gave to the students, and thank you for continuing to do the work that you've been entrusted with. I want to thank the staff of Plan who were instrumental in putting this evening together. Hank Leone and Kelly Bach-Yeckley, who are off screen, have been very instrumental in making sure this virtual MLK reception for the first time happened and is happening without a hitch. We're grateful for the ability to stream this across the world and for countless people to see this event. Although it's not the same as gathering in person, without the support of dedicated Plan staff, it would not have happened in this way. Of course, I also want to thank Arlene for her tireless work to ensure that this internship continued this summer. In a normal year, the internship program is no easy task, but Arlene flawlessly executed it this year, even in the midst of it not being a normal year. She conducted 2.5 years of poverty law training for interns and facilitated this virtual reception. She's pretty amazing, and I'm grateful that she's in charge of this work for Plan. Thank you, Arlene. Thank you to all of you who are watching this evening. We encourage you to support the lives of the students that you've seen here tonight, provide them with opportunities, open up your Rolodexes if you still have them, or your contact lists from Outlook, and make sure that when they call and say, my experience at Legal Aid helped influence the direction that I want to go, and I'm interested in seeking opportunities with you, that you say yes, that you give them a chance, because they're pretty amazing. So thank you very much for all of you who are watching tonight, for those of you who participated today. I'm grateful for your participation and for your support of the 10 students that we have with us this summer. Thank you. Arlene, back to you.
Thank you, Patrick. I must say I'm feeling quite emotional. I've been doing this internship program for quite some time, and I have to say this has been the most wonderful, driven, servant heart, genuine group of law students that I've ever encountered in this summer internship program. And I think it has come across very clearly as each student had an opportunity to express their feelings about the internship, read from their excerpt of the drum major essay collection, and then also hearing Aman speak on behalf of the class as well too. I'm just delighted that I've had the opportunity to be a part of your journey. And as I shared during our training today, that we are now family. So if there's anything that I can ever do for you, whether you decide that you're going to continue in legal services or go off on a different path with your legal career, we can always reconnect. And I'm here to help you through any way that I can. I truly do appreciate every single one of you. And I'd like to use this opportunity for us to give a virtual applause to all of our law students for the great work that they did this summer. And I also want to thank the members of the Plan staff, and Patrick mentioned Hank Leone and Kelly Bach-Yeckley, who were instrumental in helping me to put together this live event this evening. But we also had some other staff members mentioned as well, and I know they're out there watching. And even if they weren't, I want to make it a point to make sure that I mention them and thank them for all the work that they did in this process. So in addition to Hank and Kelly, I'd like to also recognize Natalie Bogerman, who is typically my right hand with these in-person receptions, Marielle Quinones, Lacey Tolling. Thank you so much for participating and testing this virtual event to make sure that it went off without a hitch. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening and listen to the wonderful experiences of our interns. And so I'm hopeful that we will see you all next year in person, not virtually. So with that being said, on behalf of Plan, I'd like to say good night.